Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and first off I want to wish you guys a happy Thanksgiving. I've already eaten a big Thanksgiving meal, which you guys can see on my Instagram, some photos, if you're curious what I ate. But yeah, I am very full. But I had a subscriber ask a question, which I'm going to flip in here. And this young man wants to know how can he push himself maximally on every set for the most gains possible without jeopardizing his recovery. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing. Let's do a little bit of crafting and let's talk about that. Alright, to answer your question, you can't. You can't push yourself maximally without impeding recovery. That's kind of the whole point. Like if training hard didn't impede recovery, you could come in and train maximally every morning, every lunch period, and every afternoon, and then again every evening, and train 4 times a day, 7 days a week, train the same lifts and same body parts maximally, and never have to periodize, never have to back off, never have to worry about it. Hard training impedes recovery. That's kind of the whole point. What your job to do if you want to make maximum gains is to balance hard work with training frequency, with recovery, with volume. And when I say hard work, I mean hard work is relative. Is it hard to come in and do 10 sets? Or is it hard to come in and do one heavy set of rest pause where you add 10 extra reps and try to get up to 20 reps with a 10 or 11 rep max? Or to come in and do 10 sets of an exercise, nothing to failure, but just working semi-hard at them. Which is harder? I don't know. We could argue about it all day. Which one would produce more growth? I don't know. We could argue about it all day, couldn't we? As to which of those two is going to make you bigger or give you maximum gains. You know what? People get pretty big doing both. You know what else? People also get pretty big without even training to failure. Now, what I would tell you that as far as balancing recovery goes, if you're not on a ton of drugs, and notice I didn't say if you're not on drugs, I said on a ton of drugs. There's a difference between being on little drugs, being on no drugs, and being on a lot of drugs. Those are different categories. Very, very different categories. But if you're not on a lot of drugs, which means you're not on any or you're just on a little, recovery is very important, but training frequency is also important because the lower your hormone levels are, meaning towards the slightly enhanced to non-enhanced scale, the more you benefit from higher training frequency over time as far as making the best gains go. So for those people, your goal should be, when you train, to come in and stimulate as much muscle growth as you can get away with without impeding your recovery so much that you can't train the same exercises, lifts, body parts in 2 to 3 days, 48 to 72 hours. That should be your actual goal. As far as training goes, you don't need to come in and train maximally. You don't need to come in and exhaust yourself. You know the old expression, guys? Stimulate, don't annihilate. And also the idea of train smarter, not harder. Because anyone could train harder. You could always beat yourself up to exhaustion. Does that mean that you're going to make better progress? Not always. If you're training really lazy, yeah, training harder is probably going to give you some more progress. But if you're just coming in and training yourself to stupid levels of exhaustion and fatigue, so much so that you couldn't come in and replicate the same performance that you just did on the same exercises 2 days later, I would say that you're training too hard because you're leaving gains on the table. All right, you are leaving gains out there that you could be making. And to train harder for less reward isn't smart. That's literally like saying, well, because I like working so hard, if you give me 2 jobs at a company, I want to take the job that lets me work harder even if it pays less money. In fact, I'll take a 30% pay cut to take the job that lets me work more hours and is more stressful and more demanding. That's how much I like hard work. I'll take less money to be able to do it. That's literally what you're saying at a certain point. And so the question I've got to ask guys is that if you're not going to get more benefit from your perception of hard work, why would you do it other than just masochism? Just to feel hardcore. Well, a lot of people would prefer to get more gains than to feel hardcore. You know, just like some people at a job would prefer the job where they make more money, more rewards for what they do. The thing is that people just don't realize they get more rewards. Train hard. Come in and bust your ass. There's some heavy weight on the bar, and people will sit there like, you're promoting laziness. You guys watch my deadlifting? You guys see me come in and do 5, 6, 7 reps. In fact, I did a 7-rep set of deadlifts the other day, 2 days ago with 500 pounds on the bar. Nothing to failure, no grinders. Is that training hard? Yes, it depends on who you ask. Since I didn't hit any grinders, it didn't look heavy, and it doesn't slow down. I guess 500 pounds for 7 reps and no belt, no straps isn't really hard work, is it? But I keep getting bigger and stronger. You guys see my back and everything in it. But by other standards, lifting 500 pounds 7 times. And here's the other thing. Not just is that impressive, the other thing is not is it impressive or if it's hard, but if it's not enough to stimulate growth, how did I get there? Because no one starts out being able to rep out 500 pounds on any exercise, even the deadlift. You've got to get stronger and bigger to get there. It's just about accumulating hard work. So what I would tell you is, unless you're going to very, very much limit your training volume, which is fine, that is an option. Don't train a set maximally. But remember, what I've broken down for you guys before, training a set maximally, meaning if you wanted to get the most muscle growth possible out of a set, would be to do rest pause training with a moderately heavy weight. That's how you're going to put on the most muscle growth from a single set. That's what I recommend over supersets, drop sets, forced reps, everything else. I think it's superior. I've done videos on it. Come in and do rest pause training. Your other option, that's if you want to do one set and you're like, I want to get as much as possible out of one set. Because if you're not trying to get as much as possible out of one set, your workout is never about that one set. It's about the accumulated fatigue from the entire workout. It's also about your accumulated weekly fatigue, your accumulated monthly fatigue, and what that does over time to force your body to adapt. Never about the one set. That's just like one little tiny brick in the wall. And you have to think about it that way also, particularly when you go to multi-set training. If you're doing several sets per exercise, you don't need any of them to be maximum either. What you need, you're going to do 3, 4, 5 sets of a given exercise. What you need is for that last rep on the last set. That 8th rep on the 3rd set, that 5th rep on the 5th set, depending on what you're doing, 3 by 8, 5 by 5. That final rep needs to be challenging. It needs to be difficult. So difficult that you can barely do it with good form. But if you complete it with good form, but it's very hard and you're almost worried you can't get that rep, there's a slight doubt in your mind as you're lifting it, man, that feels heavy. That's challenging enough. Particularly when you're doing multi-set training and you're doing over 20 reps of a given exercise in a workout through several sets. If that last rep is challenging enough that form almost breaks down, but it doesn't, that is enough. That's working hard enough. That is stimulating sufficient, if not fantastic, muscle growth. But it's not so demanding that you can't come back in a couple days and do it again. That's your key to doing it, is understanding it's not about maximally stimulating or maximally working on one given set. That concept should only exist when you're doing things like rest pause training. And you know what? Even with rest pause training, because it's itself so demanding, if you take the sets too far, that will impede muscle growth also. Why? Because it jeopardizes your recovery and it's going to cut down how frequently you can train. So if you come in and you train that way with a barbell row or a deadlift or a bench press, and you push that rest pause all the way out to failure to where you fail a rep, once you're doing the rest pause work, you might find that you lose all your strength on that exercise for 4, 6, maybe even 7 days. And if you can't do a lift or a body part again in 7 days because you've overtaxed it, I can promise you, I can absolutely promise you beyond a shadow of a doubt that you have left gains on the table that week as a result of doing that, because you compromised your recovery to the point to where it cost you training frequency that could have given you more muscle. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.